Ladies and gentlemen, today I want to talk about something that affects so many lives, yet few know how to deal with it: narcissistic manipulation. There are people who live off controlling others, feeding on their emotions and draining their energy. But let me tell you, you are not called to be a prisoner of someone else's insecurity. You are designed for freedom. You see, a narcissist only has power when you give it to them. They manipulate, gaslight, and deceive, but only if you allow them access to your mind and emotions. So how do you make a narcissist miserable? How do you reclaim your peace? Let me share with you 5 powerful ways to turn the tide. A narcissist's greatest source of power is not their words, their manipulation, or even their presence. It is your reaction. The moment you stop reacting, you strip them of the very thing that fuels their existence: control over your emotions. This is why indifference is not just a strategy, it is a weapon. It is a silent but powerful force that renders a narcissist powerless. You see, narcissists thrive on attention, whether it is positive or negative. They do not care if you admire them or despise them. What matters to them is that you are engaged, that they are occupying space in your mind, that they are dictating your emotional state. The worst thing you can do to a narcissist is to become indifferent, to no longer allow their words to penetrate your heart, to no longer let their actions shake your peace. When you react, you confirm to them that they still have control. If they can make you angry, they know they still have influence. If they can make you sad, they know they still have a place in your emotions. If they can make you feel guilty, they know they can still manipulate your decisions. Every reaction you give is like giving them a key to your emotional world. They do not care if you argue with them, cry because of them, or even fight against them, because as long as you are reacting, they are winning. But when you become indifferent, something shifts. Suddenly they find themselves powerless. They try to provoke you, but you do not respond. They try to guilt trip you, but you remain unmoved. They attempt to play the victim, but you do not fall into their trap. This is what makes them miserable, realizing that the very control they once had over you is slipping through their fingers. Indifference is not the same as avoidance. Avoidance is fear-based. Indifference is power-based. Avoidance means you are still emotionally invested, still controlled by their presence, still dictated by their actions. But indifference means they no longer hold emotional weight in your life. You do not need to avoid them because they have become irrelevant to your inner peace. This does not mean you will never feel emotions toward them. It is natural to feel anger, frustration, or even sadness when dealing with a narcissist. But the key is in what you choose to do with those emotions. Instead of expressing them in a way that feeds their ego, you learn to process them internally and release them in a healthy way without giving the narcissist the satisfaction of seeing your reaction. A narcissist may try to regain control by escalating their tactics. They may test you, push harder, become more aggressive, or even play the victim in an attempt to draw you back in. They will accuse you of being cold, heartless, or selfish. Why? Because they cannot stand the fact that they no longer have the same effect on you. But you must remain steadfast. The moment you break your indifference, you invite them back into a position of power. When you master the art of emotional detachment, you begin to see the narcissist for what they truly are: an empty, insecure individual seeking validation through control. They are not as powerful as they appear. Their strength lies in deception. And once you see through the illusion, you realize that you were never the weak one. They were just skilled at making you believe you were. Indifference is not about being cruel or unkind. It is about protecting your peace. It is about choosing yourself over their chaos. It is about no longer allowing someone else's dysfunction to dictate your emotional well-being. The greatest revenge against a narcissist is not anger, not retaliation, not trying to prove yourself. It is simply moving on, unaffected, unbothered, and uninterested. And when you do this, something extraordinary happens. You regain your power. You rediscover your joy. You reclaim your sense of self. And the narcissist, they are left with nothing, because without your reaction, they lose their ability to manipulate. This is the moment you truly win. Self-sufficiency is one of the greatest threats to a narcissist. These individuals thrive on control, and their power is rooted in your need for their approval. The moment you become self-sufficient, emotionally, mentally, financially, and spiritually, you strip them of their ability to manipulate you. It is not just about independence in the physical sense. It is about developing an unshakable core that does not waver in the presence of their deception. A narcissist carefully crafts an illusion where they position themselves as the center of your world. They make you believe that you need them to validate your worth, to approve your choices, to direct your future. They use tactics of manipulation, guilt-tripping, and subtle degradation to keep you questioning yourself. But let me tell you something. You were never created to be dependent on another person for your sense of worth. True confidence does not come from the approval of others, it comes from within. When you build self-sufficiency, you send a clear message that their opinion does not define you. Narcissists hate this because they rely on your dependence to fuel their ego. The more you need them, the more power they have. That is why they will often sabotage your independence, whether it is by discouraging your personal growth, making you feel incompetent, or creating crises that keep you distracted. They may even present themselves as your rescuer while being the very person who caused the problem in the first place. Self-sufficiency is built when you start trusting yourself. It means making decisions without seeking their validation. It means learning to enjoy your own company instead of constantly chasing relationships that drain you. It means developing skills, pursuing goals, and creating a life that is not centered around their expectations. When you begin to believe in yourself, their influence weakens. One of the key aspects of self-sufficiency is emotional independence. A narcissist gains power over you when they can control your emotions. If your happiness, peace, or self-esteem fluctuates based on their words or actions, then they have control over you. The moment you learn to regulate your own emotions, to find joy from within rather than from external sources, you remove their ability to manipulate your feelings. They hate when they can no longer provoke a reaction from you, when their insults do not wound you, and when their silence no longer causes you anxiety. Financial independence is another area where narcissists often seek control. If they can keep you financially dependent, they can dictate your decisions. They may use money as a tool for manipulation, either by controlling your access to resources or making you feel incapable of managing your own finances. That is why building financial self-sufficiency is critical. When you can sustain yourself, make your own investments, and take charge of your financial future, you take away one of their strongest weapons. Mental and spiritual self-sufficiency are just as important. A narcissist wants to be the voice in your head, the one you turn to for guidance. They distort reality, rewrite history, and plant seeds of doubt to make you question your own thoughts. But when you develop a strong, independent mind, you begin to see through the illusion. You start thinking for yourself, researching the truth, and trusting your own discernment. Spiritually, when you are deeply connected to your own beliefs, values, and higher purpose, their influence diminishes. They cannot shake someone who stands firm in what they believe. One of the biggest signs of self-sufficiency is the ability to walk away. A narcissist fears losing control over you, and nothing proves that you are beyond their grip more than your willingness to leave situations that do not serve you. When you no longer tolerate manipulation, when you no longer make excuses for their behavior, and when you refuse to engage in their toxic cycles, you reclaim your power. They will try to pull you back in. They will attempt to guilt you, love bomb you, or create chaos to reestablish control. But when you are self-sufficient, their attempts fall flat. You recognize their tactics for what they are. You no longer react with fear or desperation. Instead, you stand tall, grounded in the knowledge that you are capable, whole, and enough on your own. Self-sufficiency is not just about living without them, it is about thriving without them. It is about becoming so deeply rooted in your own worth that their presence or absence no longer dictates your life. And when you reach that point, they become powerless and you become free. A narcissist runs from accountability like a shadow fleeing the light. They do not like to be held responsible for their actions because at their core, they believe they are above reproach. Their world is built on a fragile illusion, an illusion where they are always right, always the victim, and always justified in their actions. To hold them accountable is to confront them with a truth they cannot handle. It strips them of the control they work so hard to maintain. The moment you stop excusing their behavior and start demanding honesty, you begin to dismantle their power. When dealing with a narcissist, you will often notice a pattern. They manipulate conversations to shift blame, twist facts to suit their narrative, and avoid any situation where they are forced to take responsibility. They will gaslight you, making you doubt your own memory or perception of events. They will turn a clear wrongdoing into a misunderstanding, and if they cannot deny it, they will justify it. This is because accountability threatens their carefully constructed reality. If they admit fault, even once, the entire house of cards begins to collapse. That is why they will do anything, lie, deflect, attack, or play the victim to escape responsibility. But here is the key. When you refuse to accept their excuses, when you stop letting them rewrite history, and when you stand firm in the truth, you become an obstacle they cannot easily move. Most people who deal with narcissists fall into the trap of explaining themselves, trying to reason, or seeking some kind of closure. But the reality is, narcissists do not operate in truth. They operate in manipulation. The more you argue, the more they twist your words. The more you defend yourself, the more they find ways to make you feel guilty. This is why logic and reasoning alone do not work with a narcissist. They do not seek understanding, they seek control. The most powerful way to make a narcissist miserable is to consistently hold them accountable without engaging in their games. If they lie, present the facts without emotion. If they shift blame, redirect the conversation back to the original issue. If they try to guilt trip you, recognize it for what it is and refuse to participate. The key is consistency. Narcissists thrive in environments where people give up and give in. They count on exhaustion winning over persistence. But when you refuse to waver, when you stand firm in what you know to be true, they become frustrated. They may lash out, withdraw, or even attempt to turn others against you, but deep down, they are unsettled. Because for once, they are being held to a standard they cannot escape. It is important to understand that holding a narcissist accountable does not mean changing them. True narcissists rarely change because they do not believe they need to. The goal is not to fix them. The goal is to protect yourself from their influence. When you enforce boundaries and demand honesty, you send a message: I will not be manipulated. I will not be deceived. I will not participate in your false reality. That message alone is enough to shake them, because their entire existence is built on controlling the way others see them. One of the most effective strategies in dealing with a narcissist is documentation. Narcissists thrive in ambiguity, where they can twist words and deny past conversations. But when you document their actions, whether through text messages, emails, or written notes, you take away their ability to manipulate the past. When confronted with undeniable proof, they often react in two ways. They either double down on their lies, or they become defensive and withdraw. Either way, they are forced into a corner, and that is exactly where they do not want to be. Another way to hold a narcissist accountable is by refusing to engage in their emotional traps. Narcissists are experts at provoking reactions. They will insult, belittle, and push your buttons just to get you to explode. Why? Because the moment you react emotionally, they regain control. They can point at your anger and say, "See, you're the problem." But when you stay calm, when you respond with logic instead of emotion, you rob them of their weapon. You show them that their tactics no longer work. It is also important to surround yourself with people who see the truth. Narcissists work best in isolation, where they can manipulate without interference. They will try to make you feel alone, misunderstood, and even crazy. But when you have a strong support system, when you have people who can remind you of reality, you become much harder to manipulate. Seek out those who will affirm the truth, who will remind you of your worth, and who will stand by you when the narcissist tries to turn the tables. Finally, understand that walking away is sometimes the most powerful form of accountability. Not every battle is meant to be fought. Sometimes the best way to hold a narcissist accountable is to remove yourself from their grip entirely. They do not deserve your energy, your explanations, or your attempts to fix them. Your responsibility is to yourself, to protect your peace, to guard your heart, and to live in truth. The more you detach, the more they lose their ability to control you. When you no longer fear the consequences of holding them accountable, you become the one thing they cannot stand, someone they cannot manipulate. And that, my friends, is the true power of reclaiming your freedom. Boundaries are one of the most powerful tools you can use when dealing with a narcissist. They are not just about keeping someone at a distance, they are about defining what you will and will not allow in your life. A narcissist thrives in environments where there are no rules, where they can manipulate, twist situations to their advantage, and exploit people without consequence. But the moment you establish and enforce boundaries, you strip them of their ability to control you. When you do not have boundaries, you give them unlimited access to your emotions, your time, your thoughts, and even your self-worth. This is exactly what they want. They want to invade your space and dictate how you feel, how you react, and how you perceive yourself. But when you set clear, unshakable boundaries, you create a firewall that prevents them from manipulating your reality. At first, they will test you. They will push against your boundaries, trying to break them down because they are not used to resistance. They may guilt trip you, calling you selfish or ungrateful. They may try to play the victim, making you feel like you are the one hurting them. They may even become aggressive, attempting to force their way back into the position of control. This is a critical moment. If you give in, even slightly, they will see it as an opening to continue their manipulation. But if you stand firm, they will realize that their old tactics no longer work on you. The key to maintaining boundaries is consistency. You cannot set a boundary today and then break it tomorrow because you feel bad or because they manage to manipulate your emotions. A boundary that is not consistently enforced is not a boundary at all. It is a temporary obstacle for them to find a way around. The moment you say, "I will not tolerate this behavior," and follow through with action, you send a message that you respect yourself too much to be mistreated. One of the biggest fears of a narcissist is losing control. They do not want to feel powerless, and when you set boundaries, you force them to face that powerlessness. They may react with anger, withdrawal, or an attempt to manipulate through kindness, but this is not genuine change. It is a strategy to regain access to your life. When they see that their manipulation no longer affects you, they begin to feel miserable. Their world revolves around control, and when they lose control over you, it shakes their very foundation. Boundaries are not about punishing a narcissist. They are about protecting yourself. They are about ensuring that you do not lose yourself in their web of deceit, guilt, and emotional turmoil.
A narcissist does not respect people who allow themselves to be controlled. They only see them as easy targets. But the moment you stand firm, you shift the power dynamic. Imagine your life as a house. Without boundaries, the doors and windows are wide open, and anyone can walk in, take what they want, and leave chaos behind. But when you install locks, put up fences, and decide who can and cannot enter, you protect your peace. A narcissist wants unrestricted access, but when you deny them that, they are left outside, frustrated and powerless. You must also be prepared for the smear campaign. When a narcissist realizes they can no longer control you, they may attempt to control how others see you. They may spread lies, distort stories, and try to turn people against you. But do not let this shake you. Those who truly know you will not be swayed by their deception. And in the end, truth always reveals itself. One of the most effective ways to reinforce boundaries is to detach emotionally. A narcissist feeds off emotional reactions. If they can make you angry, sad, or desperate for their approval, they still have a hold on you. But when you respond with calmness, neutrality, and unwavering firmness, they begin to realize that their power over you is fading. They hate this. They hate being ignored, dismissed, and rendered irrelevant. And that is exactly what happens when you build strong boundaries. You do not owe anyone unlimited access to your life, especially not someone who manipulates, disrespects, and drains you. Setting boundaries is an act of self-respect, an act of self-love. It is a declaration that you value yourself enough to protect your peace. And the moment you do this, you take back the power they tried so hard to steal from you. Success is one of the greatest weapons against those who seek to control, manipulate, and diminish you. A narcissist thrives on the illusion that you need them, that without their approval, you cannot rise. They weave a web of deceit, making you believe that their presence in your life is the reason for your achievements, that without them you are incapable, lost, and insignificant. But the greatest realization you can ever have is that your success is not dependent on anyone's validation. The moment you begin to flourish without their approval, without their involvement, and without their influence, you deal a significant blow to their ego. Narcissists want to be at the center of your world. They need to feel important, irreplaceable, and superior. Their sense of worth comes from the belief that others cannot function without them. They take credit for your ideas, diminish your talents, and downplay your achievements because the thought of you succeeding without them is unbearable. But here's the truth. They fear your independence. They fear a version of you that no longer seeks their recognition. They fear a person who wakes up every morning and decides to live, grow, and prosper without looking back at them for approval. When you start succeeding on your own terms, a narcissist experiences an internal crisis. Their entire identity is built on control, and the moment they lose their hold over you, they are forced to face their deepest insecurity, that they are not as powerful as they think. Your success is a mirror reflecting their own inadequacy. They cannot stand to see you happy, thriving, and moving forward because it contradicts the very lie they have been telling themselves and others, that you are weak without them. But when you break free, when you become self-sufficient, you expose the truth. They were never the source of your greatness. Flourishing without a narcissist requires a shift in mindset. It requires you to detach emotionally and mentally from their influence. No longer are you looking for their validation, no longer are you waiting for their approval, and no longer do their words define your worth. Instead, you begin to trust yourself, invest in your growth, and create a life where your success is built on your own efforts. You stop explaining yourself to them. You stop justifying your dreams, and you stop allowing their negativity to dictate your choices. You step into a space where your happiness is no longer tied to their reactions, where your achievements are not a tool for their manipulation, and where your growth is driven by a deep understanding that you were made for more. At first, a narcissist will try to undermine your success. They will dismiss your progress, belittle your ambitions, and try to plant seeds of doubt in your mind. They might say, "You'll never make it without me," or "You're only successful because of what I taught you, so it shan't be nonsense." These words are designed to make you second-guess yourself, to make you feel like your growth is illegitimate. But remember, these are not the words of a wise mentor. They are the words of someone who fears your independence. The moment you recognize this, you stop internalizing their doubts and start walking with the confidence that your success is yours alone. As you continue to rise, a narcissist may attempt to regain control. They might suddenly become overly supportive, acting as though they were always rooting for you. They will try to insert themselves into your journey, hoping to take credit for your victories. But this is just another tactic. They do not celebrate you, they seek to reclaim power. True support is selfless, but a narcissist's support always comes with strings attached. They want to remind you that they are still present, still relevant, still necessary. Do not fall for this illusion. Keep moving forward. Keep building. Keep succeeding. The most powerful thing you can do is live without looking back. The past does not define you, and the people who once sought to control you do not determine your destiny. Your success is not about revenge. It is about fulfillment. It is about stepping into the fullness of your potential, embracing the gifts and talents that were placed within you, and living a life that reflects strength, resilience, and purpose. A narcissist may try to rewrite the narrative, but the evidence of your success will always speak louder than their words. In the end, success is not just about what you achieve externally. It is about the internal transformation that takes place when you finally realize you are enough. When you no longer crave validation from those who once held you back. When you no longer feel the need to explain your happiness. When you no longer shrink yourself to make others comfortable. That is true success. You do not need their approval to be great. You do not need their permission to shine. You were born to thrive, and no one, no matter how manipulative, can take that away from you. Respecting yourself is the foundation of true freedom, and when you master it, a narcissist loses all control over you. Narcissists prey on those they perceive as weak, those who seek external validation, and those who are willing to compromise themselves to maintain peace. But when you honor yourself, when you stand firm in your worth and refuse to bow to manipulation, you become an immovable force. A narcissist cannot control what they cannot shake. And the moment you realize your intrinsic value, their power crumbles. It all begins with understanding who you are. Many people fall into the traps of narcissists because they are unsure of their own worth. When you do not recognize your value, you become vulnerable to those who seek to define it for you. A narcissist will attempt to shape your identity by distorting reality, making you feel small, inadequate, or unworthy unless you comply with their demands. They will plant seeds of doubt in your mind, making you question your intelligence, your abilities, and even your perception of truth. But here's the key. When you truly respect yourself, you no longer entertain lies about who you are. You do not allow another person to dictate your confidence or your belief in your own capabilities. You stand firm in the truth that you are whole, complete, and powerful without their validation. Respecting yourself means setting boundaries that protect your peace and well-being. A narcissist thrives in environments where there are no limits, where they can push and pull without consequence. But when you enforce clear and firm boundaries, they are forced to face the reality that they cannot manipulate you. They will try to guilt trip you, shame you, or even punish you for refusing to bend to their will. They will accuse you of being selfish, ungrateful, or difficult. But the truth is, maintaining boundaries is not selfish. It is necessary. When you respect yourself, you understand that your emotional, mental, and physical well-being are not negotiable. You do not allow others to walk over you simply to keep the peace, because you know that true peace comes from within, not from submission to toxicity. Another way self-respect makes a narcissist miserable is by removing the supply they seek. A narcissist craves attention, control, and admiration. They need to feel superior, to feel like they have an influence over others. When you respect yourself, you no longer participate in their games. You no longer react to their provocations. You no longer seek their approval, and you no longer engage in the back and forth chaos they try to create. Instead, you choose peace over drama, clarity over confusion, and purpose over distraction. This infuriates them because they realize they can no longer manipulate you into feeding their ego. Self-respect also means walking away when necessary. Many people stay entangled with narcissists because they believe things will change, or they fear what will happen if they leave. A narcissist thrives on this fear. They want you to believe that you cannot survive without them, that no one else will love or understand you, that leaving them will only lead to loneliness or failure. But when you respect yourself, you recognize that staying in an unhealthy relationship, whether personal, professional, or social, is far more damaging than any fear of the unknown. You choose yourself over toxicity. You refuse to settle for a life dictated by someone else's insecurities. And when you walk away with confidence, knowing you deserve better, a narcissist is left powerless. The greatest act of self-respect is living a fulfilled life despite those who tried to break you. A narcissist cannot stand to see you happy, successful, and at peace, especially when they are no longer a part of your journey. Their biggest fear is realizing they had no lasting impact on your destiny. When you thrive without them, when you pursue your goals unapologetically, and when you embrace your freedom, they are forced to face the truth. They never had real power over you. So, let this be your reminder. You owe no one your dignity, your self-worth, or your peace. You do not need permission to honor yourself. The moment you decide to respect yourself fully, you become untouchable. You rise above manipulation, you break free from toxic cycles, and you reclaim control over your life. And in doing so, you make the narcissist miserable, not through revenge, not through anger, but simply by becoming everything they tried to convince you that you couldn't be: free, whole, and unstoppable.